There's a club we're not in. It's a joke we never win. Both sides got their masks on tight. Truth's a ghost in the dead of night. Falling in this dirt you stole. Light for cloud, you've seen it all. In a world that's upside down. Beautiful dumpster fire.
That's it. My new band is called Beautiful Dumpster Fire. I'm quitting the internet and I'm going to make a beautiful dumpster.
But no,
Welcome.
I'm sorry, but I just love that party.
What I will say is that I have been diving a little bit into Canadian politics, and I suddenly realized that they do nothing like America. So I got a Canadian, a real live one, who already nicely insulted me, which was great. He's like, "You're simple, but you're open-minded." And I was like, "Oh my God, that's the most Canadian insult I've ever heard." I love it. I'm now joining Canada. I have dual citizenship. One serious question though, do y'all use a quarter or a toonie for the Aldi? Because I'm gonna need to know.
Quarter is 25 cents and a toonie is $2.
So y'all actually have quarters. I'm just making sure if I take a quarter,
Yeah, the
y'all
only thing
have
we don't have is
quarters.
pennies. Blame
I'm
Trudeau.
liking this country more.
The Canadian penny was costing them like a 1.5 cents for the 1 cent
I
coin.
remember that.
So Trudeau decided, well, let's stop making them. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. He then decided to also in the same bill say, yeah, all pennies up until this point are now null and void.
How am I gonna pay my HOA fees? I keep all my pennies and I take them in a bucket.
Yeah. So he
I mean, I
completely
would.
got rid of
Mr.
the
Mo won't
Canadian
let
penny
me.
unless you're using debit or credit card.
Note to any Canadians, if you would like to send your Canadian pennies to Mo, I do have a PO box and I do have HOA fees to pay. And I could think of no better, origami screw you than to send them in Canadian non-existent pennies. Help a sister out. For-profit charity, Mo's HOA fees. Thank you.
I fully agree with getting rid of the penny because it was just costing the mint too much money to print them. I just don't agree with completely and utterly getting rid of them. They were already made. We had more than we needed. There was no need to make more.
If you
There was no
naturally
need to
don't
get
give
rid of
them
them.
back, I mean, if you made it a policy, even functionally at, merchants where they just don't give the penny back, eventually they would get out of circulation.
Yep.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
and
seem like a
it was
problem
a
that
case of
needed
if you're paying.
solving.
Yeah, it's a case of if you're paying in cash, it's rounded up to the nearest nickel. So the
See,
nearest.
I already knew that Canada had some issues when I would get the Scholastic flyer and I would get my little Barnaby Jones book and it was like $4 here and it was like $14 in Canada. I was like, we need to liberate y'all.
Yeah, it's a very odd. And the thing is that rounding only works when you're paying in cash. So if
Well,
you're
and that's
paying
kind
with
of a persistent myth too here, at least if you haven't been to Canada. I mean, as an indoor cat, I stay in my house, but it is kind of a myth like, hey, you don't get change back or, your prime minister is the president because we kind of take our analogs here and try to make Canada make sense for us. So you have a video that's actually going to explain kind of from the top down how Canada really is different. We're not going to have a lot of sound on this, but Dark Argyle is going to kind of explain what we're looking at. Now, before we get into this, you have to show your real, I see the maple flag, but you have to prove your Canadianness. How much maple syrup have you had today?
today, none. Sorry about this. I'm on a wireless headset, but
Canadian party foul. And you're not wearing a denim tuxedo? I don't know how you're proving your Canadianness. Okay, you're Canadian enough to pass. You do have a pass.
yeah, no, I just stuck the flag up because I realized I had no other way. So
All
this
right.
is this is
And
the
I'm actually
first.
going to turn the sound up a little bit, but we do have the closed captions on, and you can kind of explain what's going on here
Yep,
before we get into it.
sure thing. So what this is this is Barack Obama's first official visit to Canada. What's important is if you pay attention. So what we have is you've got the RCMP very obviously in their parade dress, the red parade dress, the surge. On the other side are Canadian politicians. Now, they include the Governor General, the Prime Minister at the time would have been Stephen Harper, and even, I believe, the opposition, which at the time was Justin Trudeau.
Okay, and Justin Trudeau, so you guys don't have the typical two-party, left versus right. You have like coalition parliamentary, so
We
you've got
have
small
we
different parties.
currently have 4 official parties. Now, an official party is a minimum of 10 seats in parliament.
Okay. I was wondering what
But
kind
there
of the
are 5 parties currently in parliament. One of them only has a couple of seats.
hey, the corn syrup party is winning. We will get there soon. Enjoy the Kool-Aid.
Well, it's almost the corn syrup party. It's the Green Party.
Okay, well, we take no affiliation with them, even though I'm wearing green, because
So the 3 parties currently, or the 4 parties currently, are the Liberal Party, which is the current government. They have the majority of the seats. They do not have 50%, so they're in a
okay,
minority situation. They do not by themselves have enough votes to pass anything, but they have the most number of seats in parliament.
okay,
Then comes the Conservatives. The Conservatives have the second most number of seats, which makes them the official opposition. Then
all
comes the
right,
NDP. They have the third most. Then comes the Bloc Québécois, the French party. They only run
okay.
in Quebec. They will never be government because they only run in Quebec. But there's
I
enough
I was wondering,
riding.
isn't Bloc Québécois kind of a one-party Quebec wants to leave?
Yeah,
Are they more serious than that, or is that just been generally their platform?
that's
Because I
how they
couldn't
that's
quite.
how they came. That's how they ended up getting elected the first time. They probably have more to it, and they're definitely the best one for Quebec francophones, which are French speaking
Okay,
only. The best people for them to vote for because they really are the ones that are standing up for the French language in Canada, which is
that was something
acceptable.
rather jarring for an
Yeah,
American, I think,
Canada
when
has 2
Justin was
official
coming.
languages, French and English, and that's because of our history. Now, we do share similar histories with the US, but we also have the French connection. We were New France before the US had 13 colonies. And
There you
that's
go,
where
Trent,
yeah,
ageism,
that's
just because 'cause we're
that's where
young.
Quebec yeah, that's where Quebec comes from.
Well, so
And
I knew some of that, but I didn't. It did seem like sort of a single plank party, or more it was very Quebec central. It didn't seem like
Yeah,
it
well, it
was.
is very Quebec central. They only run in Quebec.
Yeah,
Now
it just
Quebec
didn't
has
seem like
enough.
they were a party that could, I guess, transmit their message and have it seen. It definitely seemed like a very, "This is a central party, this is a one topic kinda thing," but it didn't seem like something that would spread like maybe, conservative or liberal. It just seems like a very single party kind of, "This is what you believe. This is how we vote."
Yeah, now in Canada, you guys, I believe it's electoral districts. You call them.
Yes,
Yeah, we
yes.
called our electoral districts ridings,
Alright,
and there's enough ridings in Quebec for the Quebecois to become an official party, but
okay.
there's not enough for them to become government.
And I would think with it being such a very kind of localized issue, population they're representing, in all honesty, the Quebec Party seems to be the party that listens most to their constituents about what they want and effectively governs based on what their constituency wants.
Yeah,
It's a very niche thing, but it also
yeah.
I was
That's
kinda
why I
like,
say
"Oh, Quebec."
I have no problem with you with them, because due to the size of Canada, the Quebec, the bloc needs something really dramatic to happen for them to become government, and they know it. Basically, there's no way for them to do it. Something really weird would have to happen, like the rest of Canada didn't show up to vote.
Now, for the governor general, is that appointed by whichever party is considered in power, or is
It
that
is
a separate vote?
what it is, technically speaking, is appointed by the king, but on recommendation by the prime minister, and the prime minister is the leader of the party who's
Okay.
currently the making the government. So the current
Now, is your system like in England where the party leader is kind of elected by party leadership and not the rank and file party member?
No, they're that's what's actually happening right now. That's kind of what
Okay.
Trudeau triggered, was the Liberal leadership race, which is the Liberal Party saying, "Uh-oh, we currently don't have a leader. We need a leader because we're government." So
Okay.
they're currently running around. He has an expiration date, and that is, I'm just checking my notes here. That is around May. That'll be
So
about March 9th,
Uh, are
is
the
when
liberal ridings, I guess, going around to their constituents and saying we've got A, B, and C?
it's not the constituents, it's actually the party members.
Okay, so
And
I get
anyone in Canada can be a party member to any party they want, or
oh,
even
okay.
multiple parties. And
I
it's not
was
even
gonna
the
ask that
provincial
next.
party, it's the federal party. Because we have, like, you have the federal government and the
Okay,
state
yeah.
government. We have a federal government and we have provincial governments. And they're structured roughly the same, like where the governor general represents the king for the country. The governor general can't be in 10 provinces and 13 or 3 territories all at the same time. So each one has a lieutenant governor who
Okay.
represents the governor general on the
So
provincial level. And that
that
also means that there's, for example, I live in Nova Scotia. So there is a Nova Scotia Liberal Party. The Nova Scotia Liberal Party is not the federal Liberal Party, which is what Trudeau is.
oh, that's confusing. I guess because
Uh,
here, the
they're
parties
very
are kind of
yeah, they're separated in now. A liberal, a person who's a member of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party is probably also a member of the
okay.
federal Liberal Party, but it doesn't mean you have to be. You can vote
That's a
provincially Liberal and be a member of the federal Conservative Party.
I like that idea. I do like being able to because I have tried to stress and I've learned that, the president or the governor general is an important person, but the people that are gonna screw you over are gonna be the ones that you vote in close to your house. So I do like that kind of flexibility, and we have that in America. I mean, you've got people that are closet X and Y voters, but it is interesting because all the breakdowns you guys just have it atomized differently, so it is
Yes.
hard to and the names are different, so
Yeah. Our the names are different, and that is, again, that is part of our history.
yeah.
Like, everyone's like, oh well, I'm on Quora more or less, like checking Quora because there's usually some interesting questions that need to be answered, but there's a lot of troll questions when it comes to true. Listening to Trump is being a blowhard right now when it comes to Canada. He he doesn't he's basically trying to bully Trudeau. He's got absolutely nothing to do with what's happening right now in Canada, except for one thing. Pierre Poilievre, who he wants to be the next prime minister, and he's on track for that because the conservative government is the Conservative Party is most likely to be the next government by an overwhelming majority. The
I have
reason,
seen
oh yeah,
trends to that, but and let's play this video so we can kind
oh
of
yeah,
see,
yeah.
and then we
Sorry,
can go into the No, you're okay. You're tangenting too because it is very interesting. I do
I'm
like all
trying
the
to keep us
politics.
on topic, but I'm trying to keep my tangents on
It
topic.
it's it's an art, and when you find out how to do it, let me know. But so this is him coming in.
Autism, go figure.
ADHD. This will be great.
It
And
does have
autism.
relevance in the Burlington area, and many people have
Okay,
tried
I
to
did
get in
have a
touch with.
question. Now,
Yep.
so is the RMCP, the Royal Mountain,
Royal
I can't
Canadian
say 'em,
Mounted Police. Yep.
the guys in the red shirts,
Yep.
are they considered national security, a federal police force? Are they considered like, so we have state troopers and local troopers. Are they considered maybe your straight, like your,
Actually, technically speaking, they're the domestic arm of the military.
in
They
red?
are, yeah, they are technically speaking a branch of the Canadian military. They are the federal police officers. So they
Okay.
are just about everywhere. They are our Secret Service.
All
They
right.
are our
That's kind of,
National Guard. They have actually, there are actually RCMP officers who have been deployed to war-torn regions to train local police forces.
and I'm just giggling because I see someone in a bright red jacket and I'm thinking tactical, but I understand that these are their dress uniforms.
This is
They're
their
not going
dress
to go
uniform. Yep.
out like the
They,
freaking
they,
1600s with their
the,
little drum person.
look this up sometime. The RCMP musical ride is part of our diplomatic corps. They travel all over the world and do demonstrations on their horses. In fact,
Ooh,
if you remember the Queen's funeral, there
I,
was a group of RCMP officers were riding at the front of the line on horses that were given to the Queen by the RCMP. They were her
oh
favorite
wow.
horses.
It, what I will say as an American looking in, there is something very wholesome, very touching, very life affirming, continuity affirming about the great history that you guys have. So there's a continuity. There is, this person, and I didn't have that sort of connection with the Queen because, like I said, kind of normal American, but to see the genuine outpouring of grief and sadness and the changing of an era, that is something that for all that we have as Americans, we've given Hot Pockets and Twinkies, and you guys have given us Degrassi, and you can take Drake back for a friend,
We've
take him
given you a
back.
lot more than that. You just don't realize it.
Bryan Adams was an apology tour, and we will give you a I'm just kidding.
Shatner's Canadian.
You gave us Rush. For that you will be forgiven. For all things.
Have you ever
But
heard of
it
the guest? One of the biggest problems in Canada and Canadian entertainment is a lot of our best comedians and a lot of our best musical acts never broke out of Canada.
I will say I only know about Gavin because of Steven Crowder or Gawain, Strange Animal. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
I know of him.
Canadian music is probably one of my absolute favorite things to watch people reacting to.
I will
You know
say you
those
had a
react channels
happy
is
Alanis Morissette.
having them reacting to Canadian music that they've never. It's like, why have I never heard of this group before?
I will say happy Alanis Morissette doing like something from the 80s Rat Pack Teen Mall kind of thing.
Yeah, have you heard of
It-
CCR?
Creedence Clearwater
Clearwater,
Revival.
yep. They're a cover band for the Guess Who because their lead singer was the founder of the Canadian band the Guess Who.
Okay, we love you, Canada. We apologize for our blowhards. We don't understand it. And as Americans, our first thing is to laugh and point. But we do
So
assist.
do
I
we.
mean, after we
Mostly at you, but
giggle,
That's because there's
I
a
mean,
lot of
how can
laughing
we
points.
giggle? We help. I mean, good lord.
I mean, come on, you're our nearest neighbor. You're the
Hey,
only. You're the nearest
it's like
neighbor. Come on,
brothers and sisters. We
pretty
fight, we
much.
throw a Pyrex thing at your head, you tell mom, and then, like, we pretend to like each other again.
Them and talk to them. He has a sister there. He has a
So
brother-in-law
what
who
this
is working
is
in Ottawa, as a
Obama's
matter of
first
fact.
trip to
And
Canada,
we have tried from time to time to get in touch with
and
these
what you're
people,
seeing is
but
his
they keep a very low
his
profile. It's by design.
Air Force
They
One.
don't want to be seen
And
running
what's
around
important is the
talking
first
about the
person he
president, because
greets
they
at the bottom
realize
of the
the
stairs.
hazards of that, of course. People running up wanting their opinions on policy between
Now,
Canada and the United
how do
States,
you
and that
feel
would certainly
about
be
having
a
a
no-no.
national broadcast
There's
system?
been a lot of
So,
advanced publicity
trying to
in
kind of
the press
filter
in the
through
United
this
States
stuff,
about
I've
this, but not
seen
very much on
some people that really
how it's
like
run
the Canadian
Canadian, certainly in the
broadcast, feel like
press
they do a good
and
job getting
Maureen's
the
in Ontario,
information.
who
And then a lot of
CBC
people that
and
wish
on
that there was an
the news
alternative.
cable network CNN
we have
wrote a piece
three
about the World
channels.
Economic
There's
Forum ranking
CBC, which is the
Canada's
Canadian
democracy
Broadcasting
as the
Channel.
healthiest.
There's CTV, which is what this clip is from. And
Okay.
then there's Global. Now, the problem is Trudeau kind of paid them off.
Well, and that's what I was just about to ask you. Didn't he give them
He
a
did.
significant
And see,
subsidy?
one of the biggest scandals that hit that only those that have been really following, and I only started really following Canadian politics because I saw this. The CTV CEO just got pulled in front of a committee and raked over the coals by the Liberals in that committee.
Oh, wow.
Because they got caught changing the context of what Paul Vier said in an interview. So there's Obama descending the
Okay.
stairs.
I just love having a president that can go downstairs. I'm just going to bask
Can
in this
actually
moment
go
for a second.
downstairs.
It just makes my heart proud to see an
Now,
American president that on the
I can
stairs.
understand a well-dressed man with proper dress shoes having difficulties getting down a wet ramp.
I
I
do
cannot
understand that.
understand a leader of a government who cannot climb upstairs.
Okay, as a person who can't climb upstairs, but I don't film myself and I'm not embarrassing an entire
At least
country.
while on film, I've tripped upstairs before myself, but
Yeah, but I
I'm
mean,
not the leader of a I'm not the leader of a country.
yeah. So I'm just going to bask in this moment for a minute. Oh, why did I think it was going to be a girl? French.
It's
That would
supposed to
be.
be. Now I'm not sure all, but the woman in the red is so he's probably her aide, but
Oh, okay.
her right there. Pause right now.
Oh,
That
all right.
is the
So,
former Governor General, Michelle Jean. She was the Governor General for Stephen Harper. And as the Governor General, she is head of state because she represents the king, or at the
okay.
time, the queen, because the queen was not in Canada at the time. The queen was in the United Kingdom, as the king is currently in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, and you are telling me behind scenes that so you guys do kind of under the authority of the king, but he is not the king unless he is in this country.
Yes.
So the governor general basically acts kind of.
Yep. They're basically the head of the diplomatic corps because they're the ones that do all the big state meals. They're like, how the
Yeah.
president's significant spouse, usually the first lady,
person.
they're the ones that are in charge of doing, getting and preparing all those
That's why
big
Trudeau
state meals.
resigned. Who's going to do the meals? He was going to have to do a Trump with all the McDonald's, and he was embarrassed.
But you know what I like those those big
Yeah.
important state meals are usually it's your
So Trudeau
president's
is more
that organizes
internal.
those. Yeah, that's the Governor General's job for all
Okay,
intents and
so
purposes because they're the head of state.
for international things, so like when Trudeau would, for all intents and purposes, be kind of the mouthpiece for Canada, when he would like go to India and play dress up and things like that. was he considered a diplomatic head, or would all information that he kind of coalesced and talked about have to come back to the governor general, and then
Well,
they would work together?
he's still the head. He's still the head of government.
Okay.
So as long as they're the prime minister, and right now he's technically the interim leader of the Liberal Party, because he effectively went in public to HR and said, "I quit. I'll
Okay.
stick. I'll stay on to train my replacement, but I
Okay.
quit."
Well, and I was wondering about that. So now that proroguing government, that basically means that we're taking a break to let the Liberal Party find a new leader. Then you
No,
have
no, it's more than that.
oh,
Oh yeah, every single bill. It's a reset. One of his reasons for proroguing was to allow the Liberal government time to get an election. That reasoning is actually being challenged in court.
I saw that. So
Yeah.
didn't they do
So
this
it's
now?
getting messy. It's getting really, really messy.
Well, because didn't Harper do this previously when he was in danger of maybe losing and they challenged it then as well?
Trudeau at the time he was opposition basically accused Harper of doing it for a confidence vote. Now, a confidence vote is basically the prime minister or the it's any major spending bill. It can be a separate bill. It's the throne speech, which is an important aspect to this. The throne speech is the first speech. Usually, it's given by the governor general because they're the crown.
Okay,
So
so
obviously, if the king was in town, he'd be the
well,
one
yeah.
invited to give it. It's usually sets out what the government plans on doing, and it's a
Okay.
confidence vote. So everyone in parliament votes to see if the government to see if it passes. So does the government have the confidence of parliament that this can get through?
So when does that happen? So say the Conservative Party gets in, when do they get their throne speech? Or is this a
Day
platform that
one.
they Oh,
It's
okay.
day
I was
one.
wondering if it was like
Yeah.
a bureaucratic, like they have a week to come up with, or
No,
is this something that you
it's day one. The
Okay.
first day of it's probably after the swearing in,
Okay.
but this lays out the next session of government. That's what this throne speech is for, and you vote on it. So Harper was accused of proroguing to prevent a non-confidence vote, which means that the government failed
Okay.
and we have to go back to the polls. If the prime minister loses a confidence vote, they have to approach the governor general and say, "We failed. Please call an election."
Okay. So
And I
when they
actually have the
call
documentation. I
Yeah, I
talked
was looking
to
at the, so I knew that they were going to, I think, your Supreme Court with this, um,
they're
the
trying to.
Conservative Party, but they didn't know if the Supreme Court would even entertain it because is your Supreme Court like ours where they can say, "Yes, we're entertaining a case," or "We don't have time for it on the
They
docket"?
can do that. Ian Runkle is the best one to talk about it because
Okay.
he not only stood in front of them, he won his case
Oh,
to the
wow.
point where it changed what all police officers had to do. It was a very interesting case. He
I'll have
actually
to
had
look
permission.
into
He
it.
actually had permission to air
Oh, wow.
because they do record. The Supreme Court does record, but it's not public.
I did wonder about that. So,
Yeah.
are you
So
able as a Canadian to, like, if you, say, wanted to go there was a big case, say the, Homolka case, could you, as a member of the public, just do the kind of stand in line thing?
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
and we could report on them. We just can't record. Now, to be honest, in today's day and age, I think it's just to keep the court drawers occupied. Uh, Those are the people that go in and the sketch artists. That gives them
Some of
something to do.
them, look, I am not an artistologist, but some of them, I'm like, were we watching the same? That's P. Diddy? Do you have
Oh,
glaucoma?
Canada has got some pretty good court sketch artists. It's really interesting when you see the sketch artists
You guys have
drawings
some
when they do
really awesome
reporting.
cases that I wish they would have recorded.
Oh, I know.
The
There's
pig
some
case, oh
great
my
court
gosh.
cases. There's some fantastic court cases. In fact, there was actually some amazing. There was an inquiry here in my province in the 90s that basically would have made the Baldwin case open and shut. They
Oh,
wouldn't have
wow.
need evidence because the end result was, since no one could, it was about the West Ray mine. The West Ray mine was a coal mine near
Okay.
where I lived, that there was an explosion that 12 miners died.
Oh, no.
And they went through a full inquiry, and it was determined that because of our laws, no one could be held responsible for it. Guess what happened? The
Well,
laws
I'm
got changed.
guessing. Yeah.
And I was in construction for 7 years, so I know this for a fact. The laws changed to you're where the buck stops. You're the one who's supposed to move the bucket of water because you're the one who's going to trip over that bucket of water.
Oh,
If you
great.
don't do it, you see that bucket of water, you're going to trip over it. You might as well move it, make it safe. So you're responsible for the safety of yourself, which is also the safety of everyone else. So that means that
Baldwin was
Baldwin
responsible.
would have been responsible for making sure that gun was safe,
Well, in
which
for
is
all
open and
intents and
shut.
purposes, that is what the producer does. You
Yep.
hired an ineffectual and
Yeah, but because he
ridiculous
was the
armor.
act, it doesn't even have to go up to the fact that he was producer. He was the actor. He was the last person to touch it.
True.
And because it's
I
your
still
job
think
to get home safe, and it's your job to make sure everyone else gets home safe.
that's the kind
In
of
my and of course,
attitude.
this is, in my opinion, it would have been open and shut. I'm
Well,
sure it wouldn't have been
this
this
is
easy, but that's
yeah,
the way it
these are
works.
kind of common
That's
sense things.
yeah. It's when it comes to Canadian law, a lot of it is common sense stuff. That there's some errors, some weird, just little tangent stuff that really obscure that the law nerds like to go in. But one of my favorite laws is in pretty much every province. It's the apology law. Oh yeah, basically what it means is that you cannot use the apology as evidence
Of
that of wrongdoing. So
well,
a
and that makes
company
sense.
who did something absolutely horrible can come out and apologize.
But that's not
That
signed.
apologize isn't the evidence that they did something. You need to have the other
That's not taking a
evidence. Yeah.
yeah,
If
that
they
makes
come out and
sense.
apologize, they're not admitting to anything. And this is actually provincial laws across the province have this, or across
Okay.
the country have this apology law.
So I
Saying
know
just
you're
saying I am sorry is not enough to say you're
that's
guilty
kind of
of it.
commonsensical, but America,
Yeah.
we don't have that. We have like you can sue them now.
Yeah, no, it doesn't mean you can't sue them, and it doesn't
No,
mean
but
it doesn't mean they didn't do something wrong. It just means that the apology cannot be used against them.
I wonder how much corporate, like just legal shenanigans that people spend money for these lawsuits. If we simply put that in law in America, that all the frivolous filings and things like that, that would be stopped.
I have no idea. I mean, it would be the same idea. It's like, and it doesn't just apply to corporations. So we're driving and I actually rear end you and I apologize. Doesn't mean I didn't rear end you. It just means that my apology can't get me into trouble. But you
Yeah.
have other evidence of me rear ending you, so I'm still in trouble.
So I guess as as of someone looking in, and I know American politics are the favorite blood sport of everyone, I will say Canada's really gone up there. Is there a general feeling that the government isn't listening to the people, or is that more what
Yes.
the media
Oh,
is
no,
telling
no,
us,
no.
or is
Oh,
this
no,
the
no.
real
It
sentiment?
is. I mean, even my family, who, I mean, they don't like the fact that I don't like. I care about Trump in regards to the fact that I think he was railroaded by the media.
Yeah.
They don't get the fact that I think he's not necessarily the greatest person in the world, but I don't think he's nearly as bad as the media is portraying him to be.
He's let's be real, let's call a spade a spade. He talks before he thinks. He's
Oh,
not the most
absolutely.
eloquent speaker.
No,
He is
he's a
he's
blowhard.
he's a construction blowhard. He is
Yep.
not going to be the polished statesperson.
No,
And do I wish that we had a Polyev, counterpart here? Do I think JD Vance would be a better speaker? Yes. But these people are as Michael Moore said, they are the figurative Molotov cocktail. We want someone to start listening to us. We are going to
yep.
send our loudest, squeakiest wheel to get
And
it.
that, I think, is actually what Trump does for you. He's willing to listen. And that's what everything I'm starting to hear about Polye is, that's what he does.
Well, and that's the
My
impression I
uncle,
get, but I realize I'm an outsider looking in. I don't have, kind of the cultural touch points that you do. I don't have how this is actually affecting my life. I can only see what I have been seeing from independent people, and I do tend to skew more conservatarian. So, I will say Jagmeet Singh has been annoying. How do you guys listen to his he is so
I was in
condescendingly
the
annoying.
NDP party when he was elected. Okay. And I stopped, and the reason why I was in with the NDP is because one of my uncles uh, was the leader of the provincial NDP for many years, and he eventually got elected to be one of my local ridings MP at the time, under the NDP. In fact, he ran for the leadership, but he dropped out because he realized that he was not fluent enough in French to be able to be to be the prime minister. He just couldn't cut it. Personally, I feel he was too green, and if he waited for a second term and just focused on getting reelected, going in for a second term, then he could have challenged for the leadership race. So I was there when I received the ballot when Singh was elected, and it was one of those second choice ballots, like the ranking ballots, which are absolute garbage. I looked at it and I said, he's winning. I literally looked at the ballot. I didn't cast it, and I said he's winning, because everyone's going to, the number one spot was going to be split between two people, and he was going to get like second or third choice, and he was going to get enough votes as second or third choice to become the leader. So it was no surprise. I never cast, because it's like, this is garbage, and I was like, yeah, no,
Well, so
I've got nothing to do with the
again,
NDP anymore.
casual observer, the NDP seems to be the old kind of guard party. We will tell you what you need to think. We know better. We understand you have problems, but we're getting to the important stuff first, and we will get to you later.
They're the party for the union. They are effectively speaking, they're our socialist party.
Okay.
The NDP stands for the New Democratic Party, which is basically code for socialism.
I was
Uh,
wondering that, but I
oh
was
yeah,
like, I'm
yeah,
assuming
very,
things,
very
but I
much
don't.
so. My province just elect re-elected the Conservative Party, then that basically just totally decimated the provincial Liberal Party and the provincial NDP party. And I did vote. I did not like voting in this party because it was, for me, it wasn't a case of I like this person. Now, I also have the right, like I can, not only can I write my MP or MLA, because you got a member of parliament is
Okay.
federal because that's our parliament, and then MLA is
Right.
provincial because we have provincial legislation.
Okay,
Legislate,
that makes
yeah, it's the legislation
so it would be
in the
like your
province.
state senate, state house
Yeah,
versus you just have provincial.
yeah. So the MP is federal and the MLA is provincial. And I have the right, not only do I have the right to write them, I have a right to go to their office, sit down and have a 30-minute conversation with them whenever I want.
Okay, so
I can actually meet and talk to my representative. They all
oh,
have
awesome.
to have an office in the riding, and when they're not in government, so if they're not in parliament, so they're currently being prorogued. So although they're not in
So they should
Ontario,
be in their surgeries or
they should
their
be in their riding's office.
because I believe in the UK they're called surgeries for some reason. I
Yeah,
don't
we
know
call
why.
them riding offices.
Because so what are the like main issues that you think Canadians are really looking at to? Are they somewhat American, like it's the
It's
economy dummy?
it's always the economy. The number one, the one of the biggest jokes that you'll see from political cartoonists in Canada is jobs, jobs, jobs. It always boils down to jobs, 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 which is the economy. And Trudeau implemented a carbon tax as
So
their,
I've seen
and
this. Now
yeah,
I'm going to try to explain what I think it is, and then you tell me what it actually is. So, in an effort to save Mother Gaia and Captain Planet and all of the rings of power, we are going to tax the hell out of every single person for the carbon that Canada does while never taking care of China or India.
one correction.
Okay.
It's not the people, it's the businesses. And that includes farmers and truckers. And they wonder why our food prices are outrageous.
I
Because it's in
yeah,
the it
it's in the
because it's the
base
corporation. Where does the corporation get their money from?
from the people. And then this is in for all purposes, this is a tax on the poor. I mean, over
It's a
here
tax on the
in
middle. It's not even a tax on the poor. It's a tax on the middle class.
it is. I mean, we have
And
gone from
I'm going to make it worse than that. There's a federal tax called the GST, which in some provinces got blended. Originally, it was called the blended sales tax. I know this because Nova Scotia was the first province to have it, and when it was brought up to because what it is it's a combination of the GST and which is the good and service tax and the provincial tax or the PST, and it was
okay.
my province that first tabled this idea. And of course, it was originally called the blended sales tax or the BST. And of course, one of the legislators got up and say, "We don't agree with the BS with this BS tax." So they changed it to the harmonized sales tax. Well, I don't know about you, but I don't care if it's a bull or a
Or a
horse.
harm. Yeah. So
So with this, that tax is put onto everything after the carbon tax. So the carbon tax is taxed.
I
That is the tax on the poor.
so when these so this was obviously probably in his throne
It,
speech. Did anyone say
yeah, but they don't want to
no?
listen to the conservatives. Even
Well,
the
I mean, no
NDP
one
don't want to
does.
listen to the conservatives.
Look, we're not fun.
Singh
We
got
want people
backed
to
into
get
a
off our
corner.
lawns. Look, conservatives aren't sexy. We want people to leave us the hell alone, stay off of our lawns, and, just leave us alone.
Now, this is another. What you just mentioned is actually another error a lot of Americans make. Normally, a Canadian Liberal is more conservative than your Democratic Party, and
Huh.
usually a Canadian Conservative is more liberal than a Republican.
You guys are just trying to confuse me. It's like the
That that
UK when
that
they
that,
talk
that
about a
doesn't.
red wall and
So
it's the liberals, and I'm like, damn it all to hell.
yeah, so basically what that means is the liberals usually, now in this case we've got well, let's put it this way. Trudeau was a teacher, which pretty much de facto makes him a male feminist. Do I have to go further than that?
No, I've seen him singing Deo. I've had enough.
He actually got in trouble because he was making a large like his father, he talks with his hands and arms, well, French. And he does this back movement with his arm as one of his female uh, ministers walks by.
Oh,
You would think, yeah. So he accidentally put his elbow in her padded chest, shall we say.
I guess
And he did get in trouble for it, but he didn't apologize.
what was appealing about Justin? What did he come in on the hope and change kind of
No,
wave?
nope, not at all. In my opinion, not at all. In my opinion, and a lot of the analysts will agree with this opinion, he was elected because Pierre Trudeau,
Okay, now Pierre Trudeau was his father,
his father.
allegedly.
Actually, this is something that I wanted to touch on. It is actually more likely that Castro's son is Trudeau's son than it is that Justin is Castro's son. Trudeau, yeah, Pierre Trudeau is or was a well-known womanizer, a well-known philanderer. He was well known to slip his RCMP guard to go, and Canada
He was
never are.
short and bald and weird. He looked like a penis walking. What is wrong with Canada, ladies of the Night of Canada? I'm going to need you to explain
he,
yourself.
he,
I
he's
understand
he's
a
a he
toonie's a
was a
toonie, but
well-known womanizer, very well-known womanizer, and Canada never had a trade embargo with Cuba. In fact, Canada is probably Cuba's most important trading partner. It's not the other way around. And as a result, Pierre Trudeau did have many trips to Cuba
it was
with
an
his wife.
exchange program. My son for
Yep,
yours.
I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't have an upside down pineapple somewhere. Now, this
Then
caused him to
you.
get divorced.
Well, he did
Uh,
marry like a 16-year-old bar hopper. I mean,
I can't I can't.
she was very, very young
I
compared
was
to him.
very young. I was very young when he stepped down. I was still in elementary school. I remember quite well when the North American Treaty Act was repatriated and turned into Canadian Constitution, because the next day we didn't have to sing "God Save the Queen" before "Oh Canada." I was in elementary school at the time.
Okay. So you guys have, it does seem like there is this kind of switch back to, it seemed like for a little bit here, and I'm going back from when I'm in high school to maybe going to college. So there seemed to be a shift right around when I turned 18 of a lot more of the nanny state. Like the government needs to take care of this. The government needs to take care of this. I'm noticing a shift of leave us alone, government. You do what you're supposed to do
Yeah.
as a government, but leave us alone. It does
Now,
seem like we're having a kind of zeitgeist shift
yeah.
from,
Well, you see, Canadians are really good at giving people second chances, especially when it comes to the government. Now, a Canadian second chance is a minority government. Like I said,
Okay.
There's the number of houses that or ridings. You have to have a minimum. I have it here somewhere. You have to have it by 50% plus one seat, one
Okay,
riding,
and that's why they were in a coalition with the NDP because they
because they
didn't
did
have
not
enough.
get 50%. Yeah.
Okay.
And the reason is so basically what ends up happening is as long as you maintain or potentially improve the status quo, maybe improve Canada's reputation, but you don't mess with anything. You leave us alone. Maybe improve our lives a bit. You know, we can accept some bad choices here and there, but just
Yeah.
just don't worry about it. If you do that, you're pretty much guaranteed to have a majority government. But if you don't, we might still like you because you may not have gone to
Pushed.
the no, bad. And then you get the minority government, which was less than 50% of the seats. Well, that's what happened to Trudeau. Now, that's what happened to Justin Trudeau. He was basically told, because there was a lot of controversies leading up to the last Canadian election.
Well, I know the big one, and I don't quite understand what all it is. I know I looked up SNC Lavalin. Maybe I'm not saying that right, but I know there was the Canadian Broadcasting, kind of the subsidy,
A lot of it,
and then Chrystia Freeland did a lot of
oh,
stuff.
a lot of it boils down to money laundering. Basically,
Okay.
there was one of the big things that he did was one of the I'm not sure if there was a backbencher or a minister. So you have the prime minister. The prime minister selects his cabinet. Oh, it's a similar idea as what your president does, but our prime minister's cabinet have to be seated members of parliament. In fact, whoever the Liberal government elects will automatically become prime minister, but unless they already have a riding, they won't be allowed to attend or speak in parliament until they're elected. I
Okay.
told
I mean,
this gets nuts.
I mean, I will say there. Thank you for talking to me because I know it does seem like for political kind of aficionados like me, there does seem to be a trend, and it was interesting because having looked at Canadian politics for as long as I've been a nerd, uh, it did seem like, Canada was willing to kind of take, "Okay, we'll take another carbon tax," or, "Okay, SNC-Lavalin, okay, this" I think he's a convicted unaliver of a female, but his dad was a veteran, so he's getting mental health support.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. In fact, the reason why the speaker had to change so abruptly was because of the fact that everyone in the Liberal Party forgot that Russia was our allies at one point in time. So they bring in a Ukrainian who fought against the Russians
Oh,
in
I
World War
remember
II.
that, and they the people that were fighting against the Russians happened to be fans of a
Yes,
lesser
a
known
short.
Austrian painter.
Actually, I've got a better one for you than that. A fan of Charlie Chaplin who liked his mustache. And
True.
that is verifiable. That's the reason why he had that
No,
mustache.
I so it was
That's why he had that little mustache. It's because he was a
yes,
fan of Charlie Chaplin.
I was so amazed because I remember just looking at this and I was like, "We live in clown world."
Mm-hmm.
But it is heartening. So,
Yeah.
for those
So
of us who
so
are maybe
that was what that blunder was. It was them forgetting that Russia was our allies. War makes
well, I
strange
mean,
bedfellows.
who doesn't
Um,
forget that Russia is an ally?
well, they were. They
It
eventually,
happens.
yeah. Um, but there's a lot of little things like that, and of course, the reason why all three of the broadcasting companies got paid was kind of to let's hide all this. So what happened in the last election is the fact, and it's about every 5 years. Our elections are scheduled to be every 5 years, but whenever a government falls for whatever reason, we have another election because we cannot not have a government.
That's kind of what I was wondering. So, should something incredibly unexpected happen right now in this in between interim period, is there policy set up? I guess that would be
That
very
is why
unnerving.
Trudeau had to say, "I will be the interim leader," because what he did was he fired Christine Freeland. Christine Freeland was the Minister of Finance, but she was also the Deputy Prime Minister. So she was his second in command. So he fired her before Christmas, before
Okay.
a budget was supposed to drop.
Yeah, and she has an interesting grasp on how
So
budgets work.
she decided that she would effectively go against Trudeau and quit. The reason is it appears that the budget was going to be $60 billion over when they only promised between 38 and $40 billion over.
Just a little bit of difference. I mean, what's a couple hundred
Now here's
billion?
something to contemplate. Jean Chrétien and Stephen Harper, between Jean Chrétien and Stephen Harper, not only were we able to get a balanced budget to the point where we were officially paying the interest on our national debt, we were also able to start getting into the principal of the national debt.
Here's the other question that I've noticed.
And we're now $60 billion more in debt.
So, talking to other Canadians or watching some of your shows, Harper does seem to be this Trump-esque figure. And I mean that he is kind of the constant butt of jokes. Some kind of like when, Boris Johnson was the prime minister. Do you guys notice that your media is skewed leftward or at least towards?
That's why CTV got so raked over the coals, because
Yeah.
the CBC is supposed to be our more, and this is why paying all three of them to keep them alive, that's the biggest issue. We don't have an issue with the CBC getting some funding as long as you say no strings attached, go after us. The Canadian comedians are supposed to make our politicians laugh at each other, or laugh at themselves.
Well, yeah.
Our media is supposed to hold their feet to the fire. But if you say we want our fire to be cold, here's a couple, $1 million to keep our feet cooler, Canadians are going to go, no.
And that's kind of what I was wondering.
That's just a minor thing.
I was wondering
And
if
that's
that
the thing. It
sentiment was the
just came and
same.
came and came. So in the last election, Trudeau was handed a minority government. And then he makes a coalition deal with Singh and the NDP. And that's when everything went a little.
Yeah, it was
nuts.
hard to follow because it did kind of just look like an expedited, very polite, but Game of Thrones. So
Mhm.
you kind of had Poilievre asking Jagmeet Singh, "Are you going to continue to, block us on the confidence?"
Yep.
And then Jagmeet
Singh
Singh
said, "Next, we're not going to," because in
his
February.
pension. So what is
In
this about? What
February.
is this pension thing about? Because
Okay, so
I don't want to hate him for no reason, but it
it
does seem a little slimy.
it's the same thing. After being in the federal government for, I believe it's 2 terms, about 10 years, you qualify for a lifetime government pension. Does it have to be any more complicated than that?
Okay.
Singh wants his government pension.
I mean, I get it.
And the thing is that he screwed over his party's entire base.
Yeah. And
Here's the scary thing. By polling, it's entirely possible that the opposition party will be the Bloc Québécois, because the Liberals are going to be absolutely decimated. And the reason he gets decimated, this is where Trump comes in.
oh yeah, I was kind of wondering how
Poirier
you
has
felt about.
actually been able to use Trump as the final wedge to completely destroy the Liberal Party from the inside. Other than
Interesting.
that, Trump has nothing to do with this. This is
Well,
entirely internal
I mean,
Canadian.
yeah, I mean, this seems more like an internal thing. What I kind of wanted to understand, because it is hard to get kind of the pulse of what is real in real life versus, those of us who choose to get a mic and bitch on the internet. Because, it's easy for me to sit here and say, this is kind of, I know my general locality. I could probably give you a read of how we're feeling on the ground, but I have no idea because I don't deal with a carbon tax. I'm, not having to learn French. I don't have to watch Degrassi anymore.
Well, in regards to the French and English, you are correct that it's more or less the exact same thing. They respond in the language that they were asked the question in, but they have to at the very least give a similar answer. Sometimes French
Well,
is a
yeah,
different language, so you're going to have different words for
yeah.
different things, but it has to be more or less the same. The only province where that is everything. Let's just put it this way: Quebec passed a law that basically everything has to be in French. That has been basically shot down by the Supreme Court of Canada because, no, you can't do that.
So is there
But they are allowed to have French as a preferred. It's just that they
oh,
cannot prevent the Anglophones, which are English speakers, from accessing. Yeah, exactly. I'm an Anglophone. There's Anglophone and Francophone. Francophone are the French speakers. Anglophones are the English
okay.
speakers. And then you've got the bilingual people who can do both.
Is is there a lot of friction between provinces? So I notice a lot of American problems are more of a
Yes,
rural
but
city
not the
thing.
same. There is, but not to the same degree as what we see in the States. Um, for example, I am in Nova Scotia, as I've mentioned, which is one of
So that's
the
on the East
East
Coast,
Coast.
right?
I'm as far east as
I
you
did
can
a
get without.
geography thing
Yeah,
right.
I'm as far east as you can get in North America without getting your feet wet.
Wait a minute. Are you where they wrote Anne of Avonlea? Because I might be a Canadianologist
No,
already.
no,
Damn it.
that's Prince Edward Island. You have to
Hey,
get
I
your feet wet.
remembered somewhere in Canada.
Oh yeah, there are neighbors. There is actually a
Hey, I
ferry.
love that show.
There is actually a ferry that goes from Nova Scotia to PEI.
When I was being wholesome and not watching South Park, I was watching Anne of Avonlea. I don't
Have
know
you
what that
ever?
says about me.
Did you ever see Lex? Was it Lex? Yeah, Lex.
No,
Okay,
I don't know if Degrassi was bootlegged into America,
it
but I
was.
started
It was
watching
shot in
that,
Toronto.
and I was like, "Holy crap, these kids get into more shit than I have ever seen in my
Yep.
entire." Like, every other day, someone's pregnant and getting shot, and Drake's here. I was like,
It,
"Canada is wild." I wanted to go to
teenage soap
Degrassi.
opera. It was a teenager's soap opera.
I got hooked. I blame y'all. I blame y'all because I got
It,
all through Little Dingus's kid and
Trailer Park Boys was shot around me. In fact, I met Leahy.
ooh. So
Yep.
thank you so much for
But not
taking
as
this.
Leahy. I actually was allowed to meet him as himself.
Awesome. It is so weird because there is so much that connects us. I mean, you could in theory, you could take a Canadian, put him in America, and you'd think, okay, so many things are alike.
And that's
Mm.
actually why the "we're going to invade Canada" fails miserably, because if we integrate, try rooting us out unless you know who we
We
are and
say, no, we make you say out, and we know.
but that's the thing, like, right? Like,
Yeah, well,
we
it's
are so in because we are interconnected. We are absolutely
yes,
interconnected. And a lot of people forget that, but we also have our differences. We are sibling countries,
we are siblings.
100%.
And I love how both of us consider the other one the dub sibling. So we're both
Yeah.
like, we're with stupid, and we both think
I think it was Robin Williams that said Canada is the neighbors above the crack den.
pretty much.
I
Look,
think it was
we left
I
the
think it was
doors
Robin Williams who
open.
said that.
We left the doors open, people done ran into our house, and you're the attic.
Yeah. Um, but yeah,
But
that pretty much
no, but
explains. But yeah, there is between provinces, but it's more between regions. So you've got the
well,
Atlantic
so I've seen a lot
provinces.
about Alberta being is Alberta more of a gas sort of
Yeah,
natural gas thing?
Alberta would be equivalent to Texas.
Okay, that's
BC would
kind
be
of what
BC would be equivalent to California.
okay, that's kind of how I gauged or how I kind of put all the information together. I figured
Yeah,
Alberta's more of your Texas area. So, and I do think it's
Newfoundland
easy
is
for
the norm.
Americans I do think it's easy for Americans to forget that Canada spans the entirety of our coast to
Yeah,
coast. So,
this is like Trump's like, oh well, we're not going to protect Canada. Well, who are you protecting us from? There's only one country who is physically capable of attacking Canada. Canada is the second largest country in the world, so we have the second largest airspace in the world. And unless you have permission from the Canadian government, your air force is not flying over our airspace.
look, I am
So
hoping for a
who
cease
are
of
you protecting
enmity.
us from?
Well, Greenland, have you heard? It's green. You don't know how hard it is to wake up from, like, ketamine treatments to see that Trump is gonna buy Greenland, and I'm like, "Am I
It's
still
not
high,
happening.
sweetheart?" Uh,
It's not happening. And
no.
here's something about our relationship. 9/11, Canada, without being asked, automatically sent RCAF planes to patrol the White House's airspace
Yeah,
because
I wish we
all
could go
American
back to
planes
that.
were down, and Canada was allowed to do that.
It
Um,
it is so
Canada,
sad because
yeah,
if you look back at it and we lived through this, but you know those few weeks, those precious few
we
weeks right after where we were all together and we were all just stunned and
that there are stories in Canada that people have forgotten. Like there's lovely documentaries on Gander, Newfoundland, Project
okay,
Yellow Ribbon or whatever. Absolutely beautiful in regards to what happened on 9/11 because they landed a lot of air. They took in their population for the duration like tripled in one day.
yeah,
But Halifax, where I am in Nova Scotia, our airport landed uh, bigger airport, more planes could land. There is a story where there was a couple that were flying to Cancun or somewhere. It was a destination wedding, and obviously they had to come through. They were coming
yeah,
down through the states to get there. They get rerouted to Canada. They're volunteer, because it was within we found out about it, and within 24 hours we were mobile. Canada was fully mobilized.
yeah,
Our hospitality was on full steam. So their billet family found out that they were going to miss their wedding. And the woman goes, "You're not missing your wedding on my watch." Within 1 week, they had everything from the wedding to the
Oh.
venue to the priest, everything done because she was not going to miss her wedding.
And I love that. And that's
Yep.
kind of why I wanted to talk to you, because I think the internet kind of community has been so great in that I see these stories,
Yep.
but you miss the humanness. And
Yeah, I mean, it's just these lovely little stories like flight Swiss Air Flight 111 or whatever it is. I can't remember it. It had a fire issue, and they contacted airspace here. They had clearance to land in Halifax Stanfield International Airport, but they had to reduce their fuel because they were fueled to go across the Atlantic, so they
yeah,
had to
so they
reduce weight. And it's like,
are you
yeah, no,
watching Mayday Flight
you're
Disaster
30 minutes,
too?
you're like 15, 30 minutes out from us. Go
Yeah.
here, dump your fuel. You'll come back. You can do it in this loop. We've got you. Don't
Yeah, they've
worry
gotta be
about it.
less heavy. They've
Yeah.
gotta and yeah.
And they go and do this, and it's over a little place called Peggy's Cove, which is a lovely little tourist area
Oh,
by
no.
me. We're talking you're talking 10, 15
Oh,
minute
yeah.
drive from where I am. So they're that's how close they are to the airport. That's when the plane explodes. Well, the fishermen were coming in from their daily catch. They were just tying up their boats. They just finished that day's fishing. All of a sudden, a fireball appears in their space, landing in their water. The Navy thanks them because the first people on site were the fishermen, and then the Royal Canadian Navy showed up.
These are stories that need to get out. We are
Yep.
so much more alike, and I feel like there's this groundswell.
Yeah.
You
And
have finally pissed off the people that just wanna be left alone, and we're polite, but we're gonna get you out and then go back to leaving us alone
yeah,
and do better.
there's a reason why the Geneva Convention exists, and it's because of Canada. You don't
I
piss off the bear, or in our case, the beaver.
Oh, did
Canadians,
you create WD-40, the Red, Red Wine song? Because
most of what is in the Geneva Conventions is to curtail what Canada can do because Canada calls it the suggestions.
I'm beginning
We
to
have a we have a get her done attitude when it comes to war.
Have you heard my latest, political slogan for 2028? We're not in Geneva. I have plans, y'all. I have plans,
Yeah,
and we
no,
aren't in Geneva. Canada can join, though you're not in Cana or in Geneva.
yeah, no. It's Canada. If we were going to say, if we look at Star Wars and we were to say that the Empire was based off of Germany, the stormtroopers were not German soldiers. The German soldiers called Canadian soldiers stormtroopers. We're the ones they hated.
Well, I don't think they were friends with Manny.
No, no, they
No.
they would rather fight any other country but the Canucks
Well, it's just like, and I don't know why I've gotten into Dune
because we were going to
lore,
get it done.
because Arrakis and Sardaukar, they were hostile planets. You do not mess with people that live off the land. I feel like we shouldn't have to say this, but if Dune has taught us, if, freaking Dances with Wolves, which I was forced to watch, if, well, The Good Dinosaur has taught us anything. I'm just kidding. The Good Dinosaur was a fever dream.
Yeah,
Unrelated topic, completely tangentified, but a cowboy dinosaur with a feral child? How many gummies were you on? Contact me, Disney, just wanna know. Like, if
sounds
there's
like
a
Alberta.
level Well, Dark
Actually,
Argyle
Speaking of Alberta, that's where most of your international oil comes from.
Well, so and that's the, oil
The tar
sands
sands.
they
Yeah.
extract. Now, is that c this is the problem that kills me with us trying to offshore energy. Now, I'm not an energy engineer, I'm not a oilologist, but it seems if we have the highest standards around the world and we are the cleanest at doing this, I would much rather take a pipeline with the Alberta natural gas sands than, Venezuelan oil, but call me crazy, I'm not in charge of shit.
Yeah. No, exactly. And um, if I were to show you out my window, you would see a forest, and I'm in the city. When it comes to the softwood lumber, yeah, if it's not privately owned, it's crown land, and you have to have permits to do anything on it. Now, fortunately, our government is not so strict on the permits as long as you make sense, or you like part of your plan is to replant what you take.
Okay.
The government's okay. I don't mind that for forestry. Go ahead.
No.
Either manage it well and then replant,
Re Yeah.
or whatever. I don't have an issue with that. Um, and Canada is a very environmentally conscious country for a lot of different reasons, and I don't have an issue with that either. I
Well,
think
is it
many
I
countries
think
do,
there's
but I think the
if we
problem
can
is a lot
make
of
it
people don't.
conservation and not environmental, I think
Yeah,
the environmentalist bent has gone off on this sort of woo-woo thing. I think you could sell and I would be happy with, "Don't make a mess, don't be an asshole."
yeah.
So, pick up after yourself, recycle, do what you can, don't be a
Modern
butthole.
environmentalists are hypocrites. How many
Well, yeah.
times how many times have you seen the aftermath of an environmental protest?
It
Take
there
your
is a
science
need.
home, people. Like, if you're going to tell me I have to recycle, that poster board that you used, put it in the blue bin.
And I think we are the people that have normally been turned off. And I think this is a problem with a lot of the governments. A lot of the governments pushed way too hard, and you can keep a lot of people asleep. You can keep a
Yeah,
lot of people complacent. They can go to Target, they can get their things on Amazon. Once those people that are generally asleep now have to go to Walmart and look at great value,
yeah.
you wake up a bear. And just like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
you don't want to wake up a bear.
yeah.
All of us
Uh,
people that just want to be left alone, do not wake us up.
oh yeah.
Because once
I
you wake
mean,
us up,
in the States, you've got grizzlies. In Canada, we have polar bear watch.
okay, polar bears are assholes. Coca-Cola lied to us. They are gonna like haunt. They track you down. What the hell?
Oh yeah, yep,
Why are we
absolutely.
fighting to save the polar bears? I mean,
I,
just asking a friend here. They're
I
like
would
hunting
have,
us.
I would absolutely love to go to Northwest Territory, which is our middle territory, and go get into one of the polar bear buses. Have you ever seen these things? These are these great big, they're tourist vehicles. They're absolutely massive bus-like
Oh my
things
gosh.
on like giant monster truck tires. And they drive around so that you can see the polar bears. And it's basically a shark. It's basically a mobile shark cage for polar bears.
Things that boys invented for 5,000, Alex. Because no woman is going, hey, those animals that track us down? We're gonna go around their house and then leave tracks to where they can find us.
I would love to I'd love to do one of these tours. But the thing is that what do you do when they're going to show up in your city anyways, or
Well,
in your
yeah,
town or village
there's
anyways? Because
yeah,
in the north,
it's their
they will
home.
do that. It's like in Newfoundland. It's not uncommon to see moose walking down the middle of the road because they know in the middle of the road they won't get hit.
Okay, so who do you call when you are besieged by meese? Is it the RMCP? Like, do you call 911? Because I
No,
just did a story
you just leave
about
them
who not
alone.
to call.
You just leave them alone. I mean, a couple weeks ago, just before Christmas, I saw a deer shoulder check a car because the driver wasn't paying attention. I was on a walk. I just walk up the hill, and like I said, when I say I turn my camera around, you see woods. I
I
do
get it.
mean you see woods, and I'm in the middle of the city. I was like 4 or 5 feet away from the deer when I noticed them, and that's my winter jacket. That safety vest I put on because it's a dark jacket and I'm walking at night. So I'm more than visible. The deer had to have spotted me, unless that's not within their visibility range. But I stopped because I spot it, and it crosses the sidewalk. It looks both ways before crossing the road to judge whether or not it was safe enough for it to get across. So it
That
sees
is
a gap
awesome.
and it starts doing its running hop across the road. It then starts to turn his trajectory to the other side, because had the driver put on the brakes, the deer would have gone around the front of the car. The driver didn't see the deer. Shoulder checked the car. I don't blame the deer one bit.
No.
It spooked the deer, and within
Hey,
5 seconds, it was putting it
I
back
have
across the street by me.
I'll end on a similarly related deer story. I think you've heard the story of how I had a drive-by deer attack, and that's how I hurt my leg. Well, I'm pretty sure he brought his friends back in a full-on posse-style attack last night, because it's 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm hearing skittering outside, and we live right next to a woods too. So I look out my window near my bedroom. Near my bedroom, there are at least 6 deer, and they are all looking at me.
Yep.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
that's quite common. My father lives in the same apartment complex as I do. I'm kind of the emergency midnight call for him. And he's on the top floor of a different building than I am, and he now buys apples to throw down to the deer.
I'm not encouraging these deer. They're here for round 2.
I don't. I am of the personal opinion that when Canada says, we got signs all over the place a lot of time that says "Do not feed the wildlife," I'm of the opinion that we shouldn't be using those signs. I'm of the opinion we should, like, "Do not feed the ducks." It should be the picture of an anorexic duck that says, "If you see this duck, please feed it."
I just why do
Can
we have
you
to
imagine what
regulate
that
dumb
picture? Hey,
things?
can you imagine what that picture would look like? An anorexic duck.
I'm just so tired of government spending so much time on stuff that doesn't matter, and then big problems like we can't.
Oh, can't I've just started to find out some of the stuff that Canada's been spending money on, and it's like, w- w- no, I sorry, I can do this and mute myself, and I just got that little tickle.
So I do have one question before we leave, because I think it is another
Yep.
part that maybe I know is
We
very,
could do this as
very
a regular series if you want.
awesome, because I think we might next time get into the healthcare system, because I know it's something that Americans are very intrigued about. And I know,
It's a lot different than what your propaganda mills want it to be.
well, and that's what I figured. I figured there was going to be, because you get kind of the two dichotomous stories. You get, it is great, you don't pay, your taxes, you get to see a doctor. And then I've heard you're waiting, 18 weeks to get a CT scan and things like that.
Depending on why you're getting the CT scan, 18 weeks is possible. I'll give you an example. And
Okay.
I know this is this tangent, and I have no problem doing these 101s. I've got a lot
No,
of
yeah, it's
I've got a
very
lot of stuff to
dense.
really even just go through just your basic, this is how the government, this is what our government actually looks like
Yeah, we
stuff.
need I named this Explain Canada.
Yeah, no, I have no problem. I have no problem
No, but
coming back. I
yeah,
might have a
I
better
think
flag
it's
than what I got stuck up there.
I think that's the next topic we'll kind of cover, because I know
Yep.
that it's very intriguing, because what we are told here it does seem a bit like a fairy tale. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at it with a critical eye, it does seem like who's paying for what and how are the services expended, but it does seem like a
Yeah.
good idea.
But in regards to the wait list, I'll give you a personal example. I was just diagnosed with a cardiac issue. And when I say just, I mean it would have been September, October,
Okay.
something like that. So relatively recent. It could have been
Yeah,
even,
relative.
relatively
Yeah.
recent. I'm going in to see my first appointment with the cardiologist next month.
Okay.
Okay, and I have been followed up with my general practitioner. This is the first month that I will not be seeing my GP because they don't want to see me until after I see the cardiologist.
Okay, so
So
you're
I
still
have been,
getting
yeah,
there's a
I
continuity of
have been
care.
followed up
Okay, I
until
guess
this
that
point.
was
Yep.
that
So
was the part that kind of
yeah,
like,
there
is there
can be
just
waits. It just depends on what you're waiting, why you're waiting for something. In my case, I'm not critical. I'm not
yeah,
on
that does make
medication.
sense.
I'm not, so we do a triage system here, and
Yeah.
not a oh, this is racist triage.
Well,
No,
no.
everyone understands triage is not racist.
Yeah.
We don't
Well,
have
I do.
as many race baiters as you have in the States, and I'm sorry, but no.
It's our national
You,
export, that and Hot Pockets.
can you export them to the Marianas Trench without a boat?
Listen, you give me Brian Adams and you take Drake back and we will make this happen.
um,
Also, I'm gonna need like 10 copies of the Happy Alanis Morissette just for reasons. I swear I've never seen this chick smile so much.
if you
She was
wanted
like,
to do Discord Canadian music, I could do Discord Canadian music
oh,
and really
awesome.
introduce you to some awesome stuff.
Was Kids in the Hall Canadian? Because I loved
Yes.
Kids in the Hall.
Yep. They were
That was what
Canadian.
I wanted to be when I grew up. The weird
Anne
chicken
Murray's
lady.
Canadian. Anne Murray was Canadian.
I'm gonna have to do a 23andMe. I think I'm Canadian now.
But no, I would absolutely love to, and we would do it on Discord.
That would be great.
Because that way I could DJ it.
Oh, awesome! Because we definitely need to hear.
I actually used to, back in the early 2000s. I used to play a video game called City of Heroes, and I got interested. Yeah, I got interested in doing, or got interested in listening to gamer radio at the time, and I
Wait a minute,
became
they
a
had gamer
DJ.
CBs,
Yeah, internet radio
like
stations for gamers.
Breaker 19 here
No,
regenerating at my dead last space.
Online gamer radio stations. And
Okay.
I was a DJ for Woot radio at the time, and then PvP, player versus radio.
I love that you're speaking English, and I know these things make sense in a context, but I'm over here smiling like, I don't know what this is talking about.
Gamer term, but the thing is it was literally radio stations on the
That's
internet,
cool.
and I got to play my music. In fact, let's do a little Gen X trivia. Now, this is a more modern record, but that
Oh, you have your own turnstile? Well, you
that
are
is
on
a
top of things.
USB record player. I can digitize my record collection. I've been digitizing my record collection.
And here I am just wasting my money on Sailor Moon stuff. Someone has to be an adult.
So I actually have Canadian music with the good old pop, snap crackle pop of a record player.
There is one folk artist that I want to hear from. He was getting really big, and then he got caught in an amongst watching all of the Dune lore for a book I've never read because that's intelligent. I also watch these plane disaster shows because they always show exactly.
Oh yes,
Mayday.
Yeah, he's from Nova Scotia. Yeah, he's from Nova Scotia.
So I wanted to listen to some of his music because I felt bad that he such an American. Like I just felt bad he died, so I wanted to listen to his.
Yeah, Do you want to know the tragic? Let's cheer you up on that. Yes, he
Okay.
died because of that plane crash. He was in the plane crash. He did die of it. He didn't die from impact. He died because he went back in to rescue people.
That's what I had. So I will say, if you need something, look, the only thing I can self-diagnose as to why I like Mayday airline disaster is they always figure out why everyone exploded. So you will probably not explode in the same way if you are on an airplane. I don't know why this comforts me. If you have the same DSM-5 diagnosis, but they actually did. I can't remember which episode, but they did a really loving tribute to him, and I thought, gosh, I need to listen to some of his music.
There's actually, you're going to laugh at this. I know you're going to laugh at this. Part of the Canadian Parliament, the Parliamentary House, there's a big chamber. It's called the Hall of Heroes. Big wooden chambers. The idea is to honor Canadian heroes.
Okay, I'm down with that.
It's completely blank because there's no definition of a Canadian hero. How Canadian?
Well, I mean, we have to start out with what is a human? Are you a woman? I mean, it is 2025. We cannot answer
We
these
have
questions.
we have some of the greatest. We have like war heroes that aren't, that you would say, oh, no, but no, because no one can agree what a Canadian hero is. My
Okay,
grandfather was a World War II fighter ace for the RAF,
I
100%
I
Canadian.
am not saying a takeover, but I say Canadians march on your government and take your Polaroids of your everyday hero, and
And
you got some sticky tack. Get some
oh
sticky
yeah,
tack
no,
from the Walmart.
I actually think that would be a great idea, because I mean we have people like Terry Fox. He
So
was
that
he
was a controversy here lately because didn't Trudeau put Terry Fox in his commercial?
more than likely Terry Fox was amputee due to leukemia, who decided to run across
Run
Canada.
across Canada.
He got halfway before he succumbed to it. But there's another person who is forgotten. He came much later
Okay.
than Terry. His name is Rick Henson. He's a paraplegic. He was the first person in the world to wheel himself around the world.
Awesome. Honestly, I wish you guys could do a
He
gorilla.
raised money where Terry was raising money for cancer research. Rick, he raised money for spinal cord injuries.
Okay. These are stories we need to get out because I do think that we're more alike than we're different.
Oh, absolutely. But we are different once you get below the surface.
Well, yeah, I mean, your Smarties are much better than M&Ms. I know I'm gonna probably have to turn in my America card, but Smarties
Yeah,
are
your
better than
Smarties are
M&Ms.
rockets, which is just powdered sugar.
Yeah, those are terrible. They should be stopped.
Yep.
But thank
And
you so much for
we've got things like Aero bars, and
I know. The best
there's a
candies
great
ever.
Canadian commercial about coffee. But it's not about coffee, it's about a chocolate bar. And the catch line was, how do you like your coffee? And the response is crisp, because it's a chocolate bar commercial for our chocolate bar coffee crisp. Think
It's so mean.
think of a coffee mocha in chocolate
Yeah.
bar form with wafers.
Oh dear Lord, my Ozempic isn't even working anymore. It's just like, give me. It went full Cartman mode. Invade
Oh,
Canada for the chocolate.
it's a very subtle flavor, but it's definitely coffee, and it's like crispy wafers for the crisp, and it's chocolate covered
That's it.
mocha. It is a very interesting one. If you want to have diabetes in a jar, look up maple sugar candy.
Not putting in my cart. Yeah, because it's just crystallized sugar. It is.
Yep.
It is quite
in the
literally.
in the shape of maple leaves. So they're
Oh,
about like that big.
I love
It's pure
everything
sugar.
maple, and
It's pure sugar.
then you're sitting there and your body's like, "What the hell did you just do to me? I'm not 10 anymore."
Yeah, I have when I was younger, in I think I was oh shoot. I was a cub at the time, I believe, going through the Boy Scout program. We went to a sugar shack. Now, a sugar shack is where maple sugar is farmed and boiled down into maple syrup. So it's basically a big giant maple orchard. And the sugar shack is where all the maple syrup is piped into to be distilled down to maple syrup during the wintertime. And they had some a reasonably freshly poured snow. And this is actually a common thing at sugar shacks. What they did for our
They
group is
pour it.
they poured boiling maple syrup onto the snow and made maple toffee for us.
Yeah. I
It is absolutely amazing, but you only want one stick.
Oh, we have, oddly enough, as you're leaving my neighborhood, we have sugar shacks too. We have a little local kind of, I guess, maplery,
Mhm.
syrupry. I don't know. I would call it a grudgery, but who knows? So we have some of those, and it is
Yep,
funny because my kids, I think, went on a field trip and they did that too. So I was like, oh my gosh, we are Canadian.
yep.
We're just
Uh,
Southern Canadian.
Quebec has had a major controversy a few years back. The world's maple syrup bank got robbed. They lost a few. I
It
think they
was a
lost like a
sticky
dozen
paper.
barrels of maple syrup.
How are you gonna black market sell some maple? I'm just thinking about being, like, in the back of your little Winnebago and like, "Hey, you want some syrup?" Just coming out in, like, all sorts of Windex bottles and
But of course, you're skipping the fact that
a syrup bank.
there's a maple syrup bank.
Sweetie, it is 2025. I do not question anything a government does, no matter how dumb. I am wearing
Well,
my cow
it's
abduction earrings.
I'm not even sure if it's government
Are you saying there's
because
a cabal
basically
big syrup?
it's a storehouse for maple syrup, Canadian maple syrup. Any excess goes into the bank. I think it might be similar to government
Like
cheese,
Fort Knox?
but it's probably more closely associated to Fort Knox.
I'm just
So
imagining Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise after he gets done with Scientology sliding down to get some syrup. This is how
I
my
was I
ADHD
was
brain works.
thinking Goldfinger.
Good point.
Irradiated, irradiated maple syrup.
On that note, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dark Argyle. Do you have a channel or anything you want to promote?
I don't. I would love to. I don't. If you want to get more in depth into what's currently going on in Canadian politics, I recommend Northern Perspective. They are a
Okay.
conservative bent, but they are proper Canadian reporters on this in regards to
All right.
they
That's a
don't
good thing.
care. They're going to hold your feet to the fire, and they live close enough that they actually do occasionally do trips to Parliament.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
they're out of Ontario. As regards to myself, would I like to have a channel? I technically have one. I don't use it because, well, I don't know what to say.
It is, I think, when you first get started, you're basically talking to yourself. And if you kind of have an internal monologue all the time, it's sort of easy, but it really is, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but it is kind of like talking to it gives me a perspective on how I think people that can't read emotional situations must feel.
Yeah.
Because you're basically kind of talking to yourself, you're not getting a read back, and you kind of have to wait the 10 seconds for the chat. So it is a skill that you have to kind of learn
It's
how
I'm not overly afraid of that. It's just there's so much I don't know where to jump off from. I don't
It
know what
is.
to talk about. That's been my sticking point. As you can see, I've got the equipment to do it, more or
Sometimes
less.
just kind of playing around and talking about what you like, and then you kind of figure out, 'cause I did start with the trials, and then I realized I didn't have the time to invest, but I can do news, and I like that, and then still sit second. So it is kind of getting your foot in there and doing the awkward thing for a good long bit.
Yeah, I
And
mean, if I was able to get enough money to have the right, I can't think of the term of the insurance, but it's the the indemnity insurance or whatever it is. I actually know how to get an official uh, movie permit, where I would actually be able to go around my city with an official permit and record things.
ooh,
I'd
we
love to
need
do it.
Canadian Rescue 911.
Yeah, like
Did
I would absolutely love to do it because there's a lot of history here. We're the reason why Boston gets a Christmas tree every year. It's called the Halifax
Boston
explosion
hasn't
from.
been really good this year, so maybe next time check with the rest of us.
The reason why we do it was because in December of 1912, I'm sorry, 1917, during the First World War, two munition ships collided in our harbor.
Oh, no.
And oh yeah, it's called the Halifax explosion. And they were, well, we kind of got absolutely decimated, and Boston was the first major city to respond. So um, that's how far back you have to go to see when the last time the U.S. aided Canada.
Okay, to be fair, you can cut the tree down until we atone for Karen Reed. So
Yeah,
get
but
a
no,
bald one
it was it's actually it's actually big enough local news that it'll hit Nova Scotia news, for
that you found
who
the tree.
the tree was found, when the tree's being cut down, and when the tree's parcel, and we're talking
Oh,
40-foot perfect
yeah, it was
tree.
really interesting to learn how the Rockefeller tree, like they do tree scouting missions like years
Yep,
before.
yep.
It is fun to.
Boston is guaranteed because it is a thank you for the
Oh,
aid they gave us, because we were absolutely devastated. Um, I the family I did renovations on the family court, and inside the family court there is it which was a remade school. That school was toothpicks because of it. It's like a lot of people don't realize it was on a school day.
oh
It's a
no.
question as whether or not it was during recess or not, and there was a blizzard that night.
Oh dear. But you got people, stuff got done, and that's what
Yeah,
people want to see. I
yeah, exactly. We have completely rebuilt there. You only know where the scars are if you know where to look. And I want to do a tour
That
of
would be
my
amazing.
town to show a few of the scars that
Well,
are
it
left.
sounds like you have a passion and a knowledge of the stories, and I would very much
But I
like to
can't.
hear
But
you.
I want to do it. I want to do
Well,
it legitimately.
well, then you know how to look. As a person who has his own USB recording dealy box, I'm sure you can figure out the
Yeah,
computer
I
magic.
thought you'd like the nostalgia of a turntable.
So I'm sure you can get the computer magic, and we will look forward to hearing that because it does sound like an amazing story, and we need more of these stories. We get so atomized, and it's easy to think the world are the big stories going on that we cover, but the world is also these little stories, and it would be, look,
So
as an
many.
American, a gobby cow, if you will. I stole that from Steph the Alter Nerd. I think it would be amazing if everyone got to put their picture up as a hero for Canada, because heroism isn't in the big stuff sometimes. It's in that small stuff. It's
Yeah,
helping us, you know, staying the course, staying at a job you don't really like because you're paying the mortgage because your family needs it.
Yep.
So
It occurred to me, and it's something that people don't think about in regards to history. All we know about history are the people who did something absolutely major. We don't know about the butcher who sold the chicken.
yeah.
Like we know their name, we just don't know anything about their life. Like, you see these great historic things in England, and like, oh, we know where the Great London Fire started. It started roughly around here. Yeah, but you don't know about the people whose bakery it started in outside of this is who
Yeah.
they were. Like, we don't know. And that goes for everyone and everything. We
And I think
know so little about our history because
and
we only
history
live in the
happens so
present.
fast now. I mean,
Yeah,
last week it was Justin Trudeau, but now we are focused on the fire, but the hurricane victims haven't gone anywhere.
yeah.
And
And
w-
in regards to the leadership race that's currently going on, um, they first came out saying that anyone who lives in Canada could vote. That
okay.
was changed within 24 hours to only the people with permanent residency and actual Canadian citizenship, because everyone included foreign students that only had student visas. And part of the controversy has been foreign interference.
I have seen a good deal, and that might be another episode where we go into
Oh
the
yeah, absolutely.
Chinese connection, because this was kind of more of a primer, but I think maybe medical and then the
Yeah,
Chinese,
I would have
because
to do more research into the China connection, but medical is definitely one that I would like to explain a bit
well, because
to
it's so
Americans the way it works.
different, and I think we get told it's
You
basically
get told the wrong things. Now, I have no issue. I agree that depending on what your problem is, yes, you've got a long wait. But I mean, I have an issue with my hand grip. There's nothing that can be done. No one wants to go into it. It's like I either have hand grip or I don't. Like it'll go from absolutely I can't hold anything to I can hold on to it strong enough to do something with. Um, that took a long time to get in to see someone about once I mentioned it to
well,
my
yeah.
GP. But I mean, it's been like this since I was 12.
Well,
So
yeah. And
it's not it's something I can live with. But the heart issue. Oh, there's a heart issue. We got to go take a look at this. But you're healthy enough that we can shunt
and
you
that
off a
seems
little bit.
to make sense. I think where
Yeah,
people
your arm's
and I
cut
don't
off. We've got to go see you now
well, and
versus
I think
oh, you've
some
got a
people
hangnail.
buy the it's free and, and don't see the cost. I think there is an inherent
It's not as
acculturation of
it's not
share.
free. It's not free as the way of a buy one get one free type idea.
Yeah, you're paying taxes, you're
Yeah,
supporting the
our taxes
system.
goes towards it. It is provincial. Our doctors do get paid, but we don't have. The big difference is, effectively speaking, we privatized the health insurance game.
Yeah.
Um, Other than that, there is private health insurance, but private health insurance would be eye care, dental care, although they're trying to do dental care federally, and
Yeah, I
that's
did see
been a
dental
big issue.
care.
Yeah, that's because it's not happening the way it should. It's not the same as the medical system. It's a reimbursement as opposed to
Oh, okay.
point of service. So, but like private, so you private would be eye, dental. You're not stuck in like you get a private or a semi-private room.
Oh,
You get
okay.
right, like you go to the hospital. Your private insurance would pay for your room, but if you
So
don't
do
have it,
people typically have
here's
both
a
then?
here's a here's a ward for you.
So do people typically have both or
A lot of
Or
people do, and it saves a lot of money on regards to companies because you're not having
okay,
to pay
you don't have
for
to
a
pay the
lot
health care.
because the medical aspect is paid by the government via our taxes,
Okay, that
based off of a structure. Um, and it also means that the doctor gets to do doctor stuff. In fact, it's one of my biggest problems with Singh is going off the abortion, which is more of an American issue than a Canadian issue. It was settled in Canada in the 80s, which is basically abortion is between a woman and her medical provider.
is there so there's no weak delineation, this is something that's completely between the woman
No,
and the doctor?
it's between the two of them
Oh, okay.
because it's a medical procedure, and that's the way Canada looks at medical procedure is between
That
you
is very
and you,
interesting.
and that is the biggest difference. It's between you and the medical
So
provider.
you
Whereas
guys don't have, like,
whereas in your
medical
insurance,
boards like the UK?
there are
Okay.
in regards to certifying doctors.
No, I mean, like, there was a famous case in the UK, Archie, a baby with maybe terminal illness. The Pope, I think, wanted to intercede. They thought that there was a maybe experimental. It was an incredibly sad story, but basically the NHS wasn't going to pay for this experimental treatment.
That does
And
happen.
okay,
That certainly does happen. And which case, if you've got the money, you can go elsewhere. But there's
okay,
usually another way of doing it. But it does. It boils down to. It really does. It boils down to we don't have the middleman that you guys have.
and
We
I
don't
think
have
there's
the
pros
because
and cons.
yeah, because in your system, it's between you. It's not even between you and your doctor. It's between you and your insurance company.
Yeah,
The doctor wants to help you, but the insurance company is telling the doctor what they can do. In Canada, the doctor the doctor says this is what we're going to do, and they go to the government and say, "Hey, this is what needs to be done." And as long as it's covered, the
okay.
government and it's provincial, and the government says, "Okay, here's the money."
It makes sense. I see pros and cons with both because I do
Oh yeah,
see
no,
that.
we
But I
have
think we get such a surface level most of the time. We get such
yeah,
a, like, fairy
because
tale
you're
almost.
being told it's absolutely free.
Yeah.
It's not absolutely free.
No. Well, if you're smart, you
Um,
understand taxes exist, but
yeah, see,
if you're dumb and in college.
I don't see taxes as theft as long as there's a benefit to paying taxes. Right now, there is a lot of taxes that Trudeau has put
Yeah,
into place, such as the carbon tax. There is no benefit to that tax. That is theft. But the
yeah.
taxes that get paid to pay for medical, and it covers anyone who's a Canadian citizen or someone. I believe it covers people with permanent residency who've been in the country for 6 months
Okay.
because they still pay taxes. So there's a lot of Americans who've moved up to Canada because their medical issues were such that I'm going to go bankrupt if I stay.
It
And there's
yeah.
also been I've heard of a case where she married her Canadian husband and they moved up to Canada and they gave birth to a child with medical lifelong medical issues, and the Canadian their provincial medical system is like, we've got this, you just have to pay the X amount for the medication.
That is helpful. I think that there's a way that it could be amalgamated. The problem with any government run and any sort of large corporation is always going to be the bureaucracy and how you effectively use
Yeah,
resources.
it's like can't my father he's a retired cardiologist, and one of my early jobs was helping him with his, in our case it's called MSI, his MSI forms, which basically I took his rubber stamper and went chunk 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 on these cards that he would then submit. So in Canada, a doctor's overhead is a lot lower because he doesn't have to pay for accountants to figure out how to deal with 60 different insurance companies, because he only has to
Yeah.
deal with the federal government, and all he has to do is do some check boxes on a piece of card. Now, of course, it's all done electronically, but at the time it was
Breaking
just
up to me.
check boxes, and then you just stamp it and send it off, and then he'd get paid
It,
at some point.
well, that will be a topic for next time. Thank you for giving me a small overview into what it means to be Canadian. Pretty sure
Oh, no
that
problem. Like I said, I have no
I
issue
still
doing
have
this as
all
a
the
regular
sugar
basis.
left over from any Canadian candy that I tried. Those maple sugar crystal ball sugar bombs are just, I'm pretty sure I'm still running from one I had 16 years ago.
Oh, more than likely. And if you've ever had Canadian poutine, your arteries are probably clogged still.
I haven't, here's my problem. I am not diagnosed autistic, but I don't like wet, soggy things on things that are supposed to be crispy. So the entire idea of that you have a crispy fry and then you're gonna sog it down with gravy, I don't
You,
understand it.
you're forgetting the squeaky cheese curds, the melted squeaky cheese curds.
All I am thinking is someone was really drunk and it was grocery day and we were just gonna throw whatever was on there.
Nova Scotia has another, like that's from Quebec, but Nova Scotia has we're fishermen, effectively speaking. We were founded by
Okay, what did you
fishermen.
ferment and how do I have to open it in a can underwater?
It's not fermented. It doesn't smell. It's called a donair. It's shaved ground beef with onion, tomato, and a very sweet sauce on a wrapped tortilla shell. It's effectively
Where
a
did you
shawarma.
hide the fish gut?
Then
See,
the
okay.
guy who invented it was the guy who started selling it was Greek.
Okay, I was trying to figure I was like, okay, you're fisher people. Okay, where's the fish eye? I just know there's
Oh
gonna be an
no!
eye.
Red lobster cannot survive in Nova Scotia.
Well, I mean, usually because I find the dead lobsters, but
No, it's because they can't produce the food correctly.
oh, well, I mean,
Because we can go to restaurants down, get the exact
and
same meal, cheaper,
right.
fresher, better.
Look, the computer tree doesn't love you. It really doesn't. It has a restraining
Except
order.
for
Stop.
possibly their cornbread. Their cornbread was probably better.
Their cheddar biscuits are pretty good.
Yeah.
So,
But
in
yeah, no, it's like
conclusion,
we've got access to fresh food, and we've got restaurants that'll go like the fish you eat today slept last night in St. Margaret's Bay, or
oh wow.
there's a fish and chip shop near here that it's like, yeah, tomorrow's fish are
I love fish
still in
and
the
chips.
water.
Now,
And there's one restaurant that their tagline was sorry for the delay, the chef is taking the hook out now.
okay.
That's why Red Lobster
complete,
cannot survive in Nova Scotia.
in complete hypocrisy to my soggy fries. Now you get fish and chips and you don't drown that in malt vinegar. I don't know who you are, but you're not my friend. 'Cause
I personally
enough malt vinegar to
prefer
kill a
a good
horse.
I personally prefer a good squeeze of lemon on the fish, because it does the exact same thing as the malt vinegar, only it has a nice lemony flavor to it.
I might try both, but I love it. I would just drink vinegar. That's a whole
Oh
nother
yeah, no,
issue.
you'll go to a lot of local restaurants and you'll see the vinegar on the table, but your plate will come with a little squeeze of lemon. That's not dessert. That's to
I just
squeeze
figured it
over
was
your
for my
fish.
water.
Yeah. Why? You can just ask for lemon water.
Look, it's Canada. I don't want to know.
Yeah, no,
Look, I'm gonna start an international incident.
it's to squeeze over your fish. It takes the acid of the lemon gets rid of the
Fishiness.
smell of the smell, which is what you use the vinegar for, and it's your vitamin C, so it scares away scurvy.
Awesome. So there you go, children. Scurvy, lemons, maple syrup, and more. We will be back with more Explain Canada. Thank you so much, Dark Arlyle.
No
And let me
problem.
get the outro. Thor, yes, I love you very much. Would you stop for 5 seconds?